You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
Matt Laswitz, and welcome to this week's episode of Bat Chat with Matt and Will, a Batman ranking podcast, where each week my co-host Will Nevin and I dig into 3 stories, discuss them, and rank them on the big board, thus creating a giant list of Batman stories from best to worst. Will, how's it going tonight?
Oh, it's going pretty good, Matt. So I have a chat planned. At least I have a plan for a plan. But I'll start with this. Because I don't have any movie business to talk about. Am I a bad pretend movie person for just having no interest in Disclosure Day? I'm not feeling it.
I'll be honest, neither am I. Spielberg is a talented director. Nobody's going to argue that. But I'm just kind of soft on this one.
Because, I mean, he wrote it too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
I like The Fabelmans, which he wrote as well, but that's autobiography. That's him talking about the movies. That's the thing that he loves. I'm just looking at this and it's like, eh. And also, if it were 100 minutes, 105, an hour 45, that's one thing. It's 225.
Ew.
It's nearly 2.5 hours.
Ugh.
That's a long movie for a movie that I'm not particularly invested in.
So I don't know anything about it other than the trailer. I mean, this is just Contact, right? This is just another flavor of Contact.
With a little more action to it, I think. A little more conspiracy pursuit in it. There's some actors I like, but nothing about it is jumping out at me as, oh boy, I really need to see this movie.
Yeah, again, the same way. So good. I don't feel bad. No. So how about we talk about gross shit that I've seen in the locker room at my local gym?
Oh, hell's bells, man.
So the first thing are things that don't bother me, the things that I've heard about. And I was talking with one of the guys as he was, doing the rounds, cleaning up and whatnot. Yeah, I made some joke about leaving a deuce in the shower, and he's like, man, that wouldn't even be the strangest thing we found in there. Found a vibrating toy once. And the thing I wonder there is that you had to make special plans and arrangements in your brain to take the thing in there. How are you going to forget it?
That is a case of you were interrupted, you dropped and ran.
Okay. I can see that. So again, that doesn't bother me. And the fact that there was a toy in there there are certain implications of what gentlemen at my gym are doing in the shower. And again, that doesn't bother me either. Here are some things that bother me. For the longest time, I used the handicap shower. I understand that some people might think that's a bit rude, but I have never taken that from somebody who needed it. I'd certainly give it up if somebody came along. I like the extra room. What am I going to say? I have not used that since some guy cut his toenails in there. Do you know how I found the toenails, Matt?
You stepped on them?
I stepped on them.
Gross.
Yeah, I stepped on them. I wanted to leave my foot in there. I have not stepped into that shower since then. And currently, my nemesis at the gym, whoever he is, and I think I'm just going to beat him to death when I find him because he clearly does not know how to live in a polite society. There is a guy who, on at least 2 occasions in the shower, has taken the gum out of his mouth and just stuck it to the shower wall.
That person deserves to be dragged into the street and beaten.
I'm like, my man, where do you think that gum is going to go? It's not going anywhere. You had to walk past the trash can to get here. Unless you came from the pool. And I don't think you came from the pool. You came from the locker room side. You had to walk by a trash can to get to the shower. What are you doing? So I think he needs to be beaten to death. And then the last guy was listening very loudly to some YouTube video defending the story of Noah and the flood as literal truth.
To all their own. I mean, listen, that story dates back way further than that. That stuff's back in ancient Greece. We can go into all sorts of stuff about either collective unconscious or about stories that are passed down and have moved cross cultures based on some kind of shared experience or whatever. But no, 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 nothing in the Bible is literal.
And again, I'm overhearing this through a shower, and I hear the guy is like, "Well, I mean, people say that da 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 da, but the Bible is very clear. Only 8 people survived the flood. It wasn't a regional flood; it was a worldwide flood, and only 8 people survived." And I'm like, "Oh boy, we have
That
lost the thread here."
not how any of this works.
No. So, yeah, that's been like the last 3 or 4 months at my gym, and I swear to God, if Toenail Guy and Gum Guy are the same guy, we're gonna have problems. We really are.
I'm not a gym guy, and I remain glad that I'm not a gym guy. I probably could use use the going to the gym every now and then, but I'm good just sort of yeah, not because that's all very unpleasant.
Now, I'll say this for anybody not named Will Crisp listening in the Huntsville, Madison area, Phase 3 is a lovely gym. It really is. But a couple of savages go there.
I got a couple of quick movies to drop some knowledge on.
Okay.
Uh
Oh, I have one quick thing.
okay.
I just saw before we started, they're doing a Raiders of the Lost Ark, June 21st.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, first, if you are of my late Gen X, early millennial, Masters of the Universe is a fun fucking time. You gotta have some nostalgia for it, I think, or be a kid, but it's fun. Second, and this one is more up your alley, Carolina
Ooh.
Caroline. The trailer makes it look like sort of a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing. Samara Weaving and Kyle Gallner as con artists who become bank robbers in a trek across the South. But it really winds up more being a character piece about said titular Caroline, or Caroline who's looking to get to South Carolina, and her looking for acceptance and for where her place in the world is. I like both of those actors, and great scene with Kira Sedgwick, who's always good.
Is it the lead from Substance?
No, that's Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, I thought I saw that trailer.
This is Samara Weaving, who is Ready or Not.
That is not ringing a bell.
Oh, and Kyle Gallner, who has been in a million horror movies in recent years. Did you ever see Strange Darling?
I did not.
Oh man, you need to see Strange Darling. Strange Darling it's Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner. Where is it stream? It's on Paramount now. It is one of my favorite slashers of the past half a dozen years. It does something that I normally dislike, which is its non-linear storytelling, but it does it in such a cool way in that it's divided into 6 chapters, but they're shown out of order. So it's not like flashing scene to scene out of order. It's like it starts out and it says chapter 4, ba ba ba, then chapter 1, then chapter 3. It moves like that. It was real good.
Interesting.
It's very good, and it's got some really like unexpected. I want to say nothing more about it than that because I want you to see it with nothing beyond I really dug this movie that came out in it looks like 20. The date on IMDb says 2023, which means it might have actually come out in 2024 because you're never sure when wide release versus initial release on these things are for little movies. But really dug Strange Darling. That's my
Marky.
recommendation of the week for anyone. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to go and see this week. I might not even have time this weekend. Got stuff going on all week. We got a bonus episode to record on Sunday. And by the way, so July and August for our bonus episodes, that's going to be first half and second half of Cape Crusader season 2, right?
Sure.
Because that's dropping July 1st, I think. I want to double check that. Because it was just announced last week. Oh no, August, September, because it drops July 31st. But we'll get to that shortly because I can't wait. Can't wait. And it looks like from the images we're doing the thing they did with the gender swap penguin, they're doing it with Mad Hatter too.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I'm sitting back and I look at that and it's like a gender swap Mad Hatter, does that remove some of the creepy from it? Or is
You
it,
could still do it in a creepy way.
oh, you could definitely still do it in a creepy, you could definitely do it in a creepy way, but is there a way for it to be as creepy as Jervis Tetch
Hmm.
at his
Hard to say.
at his creepiest? It would be a different kind of creepy, I think.
Go ahead and gender swap Alice in Wonderland too.
That'd be interesting. Full on gender swapped
Gender
Wonderland?
swaps all the way down.
Yeah, you'd have to gender swap the whole thing because I just thinking about it, it's like, although actually just gender swapping Alice, there would be very different dynamics with the Red Queen and Off with Your Head when it's Alistair and not Alice. And actually, there'd be a different dynamic if they're both men too, because there's more of a macho chest beating thing there. Huh. That's actually fascinating. I'd never thought of that. Wow, this might be one of our shorter intros.
I kind of wish it was longer because books tonight aren't great.
There's two that aren't great and one that is fun but thin.
That is exactly how I would sum up this show.
We just talked about movies, and as you all know, we're recording a couple of weeks out. So the week this episode drops will be the release of DC's big summer theatrical release. So to tie in with it, we are reading 3 stories of the Bat family teaming up with Supergirl. Our first story of the night is The Supergirl from Krypton. This is Superman Batman Volume 1, numbers 8 to 13. The writer is Jeff Loeb, with art by Michael Turner, colors by Peter Steigerwald, letters by Richard Starkings, and edited by Eddie Berganza and Tom Palmer Jr. The cover dates are May to October of 2004. Out of the rubble from a massive kryptonite meteor that broke up in Earth's orbit comes Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin, sent to Earth to find him. Superman is ecstatic to have a fellow Kryptonian alive, especially a member of his family, but Batman is unsure. This seems too good to be true. And watching from Apokolips, Darkseid has his own plans. We'll start out with a double problematic creator watch for both Jeff Loeb, who is noted for saying very racially insensitive things, and noted sexual harasser Eddie Berganza.
What a winner.
Yes.
Eddie Berganza and Julie Swartz. So many episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. At least Berganza was never like a Bat Family editor. We always kind of get him in there when anytime we're going into like Justice League or Superman territory. I don't think Berganza was ever deeply involved in the Bat books. It's just he was deeply involved in so much of DC's stuff.
Yay.
So I want to start with just 2 initial sort of general observations about this before we get into anything specific. First, going back and rereading this Superman Batman run, as this is the second arc of this book that we've covered, good lord, this thing is over narrated.
Ugh. Ugh.
Loads.
And the parallel narration, just the constant Clark, Bruce, Clark, Bruce, Clark, Bruce. And 2, some point in, DC's House of Design, somebody had the genius idea to put in the symbol in the narration box. These are just blue boxes and yellow boxes. And yes, sure, I should be able to remember that Batman is blue and Superman is yellow, but my brain does not always remember that. So I'm constantly trying to remember who's talking here in the narration. And they're always talking together. It's always on the same page.
The idea of the parallel narrative is neat and novel once.
Yes.
The fact that it's going on every issue of Loeb's, I think, 26 issue run of this book.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's in all of them because I know there's like a Superboy Robin one off in there, but I'm sure there's parallel narrative for Superboy and Robin in that issue. But it just makes this thing drag, especially because a lot of it is repeated issue to issue. Loeb is not fully writing for the trade. So when he wants to make a point, he keeps coming back to it over and over. So reading it in collection, you see Clark constantly observing that Bruce will do whatever it takes, which is setting up one of the beats at the end of the story. But in the first 3 or 4 parts of this, that's hit over and over again. Yes, I get it, Jeff Loeb. Point 2, if you're going to do a book featuring what is supposed to be like a 16-year-old girl.
Oh my God.
Michael Turner was the wrong artist for drawing a book featuring an underage character.
Oh, there is so much cheesecake in this book, and it is embarrassing.
Michael Turner was a noted good girl cheesecake artist. That's what he did. May he rest in peace. Putting him on this, it's kind of gross.
Yeah. And the pages that aren't gross are just dark and ugly.
That might have to go to our colorist. That might have to go to Steigerwald since Turner wasn't coloring himself. But man, this is not my favorite iteration of Supergirl. Supergirl was a mess when brought back into the DCU in 2004. She had pretty much been out of continuity for just shy of 20 years. There were Supergirls, but they weren't Kara Zor-El, cousin of Superman. Because of the weird Superman has to be the last survivor of Krypton dictate that DC had out there. And so when they brought her back here, the next 2-ish years of Supergirl stories, because shock of shocks, this launches the Supergirl ongoing.
Oh, shock.
Longer than 2 years, nearly 3 years of Supergirl stories are a lot about her struggling with her darker impulses. And it's one of the things that I would, in retrospect, would have loved to have gotten former guest of the show, friend of the show, Corey McCreary to talk about, because Corey's a big Supergirl person.
I didn't know.
Yeah, but I think this is not, I think, anyone's favorite Supergirl, and it's not until Sterling Gates comes on the book, and I think it's issue 34, that Gates just clears it up, and makes Kara more like the traditional Supergirl, a little naive, out there learning about Earth kind of thing, which is a much better version of the character than broody, I am haunted by the history of Krypton, and maybe my dad sent me to Earth to kill my cousin, which is something that came up in the ongoing book shortly thereafter and was dumb and bad.
Well, this is certainly not the worst Supergirl we're going to see tonight.
Oh, no.
This one is at least written in a way that you can, I suppose, understand her motivations and thoughts from sort of panel to panel, and they don't abruptly shift on like a dime. It's strange to me how many writers use the idea of Bruce not trusting anyone or anything, no matter how good it appears, as a trope and as just sort of like a warm blanket that they can snuggle in until they just don't want to do that story.
Bruce's almost pathological distrust of Kara here is taking a character trait and amping it up to 15.
Yeah, and then in some backhanded way proving him right only when she falls under the influence of Darkseid, which is a huge fucking cheat.
Yeah. This story was too long by at least one issue.
Oh, absolutely. We had a good solid ending and then we walked right past it.
Oh, and even beyond that, the raid on Apocalypse being 2 issues was too long.
Mm-hmm.
The raid on
Yep.
Apocalypse should have been 1 issue. And then you could have wrapped it after the raid on Apocalypse without doing that last issue. Should have been 4. You could have done this in 4.
Yep. And just the whole story there is real confusing. Did they do some kind of sting on Darkseid? Was the idea that, oh, we're going to lure him into attacking Supergirl and then we're going to attack him because we want him to prove that he can't be trusted? He's Darkseid. He is evil incarnate. He wants to destroy the universe. Why do you need him to prove himself to be untrustworthy?
Because Superman can't jam him into the source wall and leave him imprisoned until he crosses a line? I don't know.
That was a bizarre storytelling beat. Just absolutely bizarre.
And why did Batman gather the faux ashes of Supergirl and put them into the little crystal urn and give them to Superman when they all knew she wasn't dead? And by that point, Darkseid is imprisoned, so he's not watching anymore. Also, we're talking about Batman being amped up to way more paranoid. Superman here is way too naive.
And alternatively, super possessive.
Yes.
Like this is almost injustice level.
Literally, my notes, Superman is pushed to an almost injustice level point. And that's fine if I felt like it was justified.
Yeah.
But it's not like Bruce and Diana are, I mean, I guess Diana sort of attacked Kara, but did it in a very, she wasn't going to hurt her.
Yeah, it's not like they locked her up in some kind of kryptonite cage or something.
And you get to the point where Clark is on Apocalypse and he's blaming Bruce and Diana for putting Kara in a position where she could be kidnapped, but also blame it's partially Big Barda's fault because Barda used to be one of the female Furies and trained them. That's way over the limit there. Because he himself admits that Barda, she was raised in this culture of Apocalypse. There's only so much you could do, and she broke free from it. But I don't know if it was Turner just doing it in the art without Loeb suggesting it, or Loeb putting it in the script. There is one absolutely delightful pair of panels that I love, and I thought it was great because I love Big Barda. I think Barda's a phenomenal character. When the Trinity shows up at her house and Clark is getting all emo and angry about things, he goes up to her and she is a head taller than he is.
Yeah, and he floats up. Yep. I love that.
Him floating up to be eye to eye with her was a great panel, a great choice. Whichever one of them did it, it's a great moment for Superman in this book, but it's also Barda needs to be that big. She needs to be gigantic.
Got big right in her name.
Yeah, although, again, Turner doesn't get it because she's drawn like any other Michael Turner female character. She's supposed to be solid.
Yeah.
She is not bodybuilder because that's not right either, but she's supposed to be broad and big, still buxom and sexy, but she's supposed to be, she's not lithe like every freaking Turner.
Yeah, he was a tall like stick figure.
Yeah, and that is not how Barda should be drawn. There's a story, Kirby as he was doing, all four Fourth World books, it wasn't Coletta. He had a different inker come in, Mike Royer, who came in and was doing finishes on his pencils. And he went in and he touched up Barda's face in the first issue of Mr. Miracle he did. And Kirby was like, no. Barda was inspired by Kirby's wife, Roz. He had a very particular look and a very particular affection for Barda. So Royer could do also, but that got sent back to Royer. It was like, no, you do not touch this up. She looks the way she does because she does.
Don't fuck with my woman.
Yeah. One thing here that it just reminds me of it, and we run across it, but here it's so called out, just how important Jason Todd's death was to the Bat books for those years when he was dead.
Did you know that Hush was a story, Matt?
Jeff Loeb just loves to remind you that he wrote Hush, doesn't he?
Hush is a story that happened.
It is a story that happened that Jeff Loeb wrote and wants everyone to remember that he wrote it.
I know we've talked about this before, but I think it's much more interesting if Jason Todd is dead.
Absolutely agree.
Because they haven't done a whole lot with him. I mean, there have been stories, and I'm sure the Jason Todd fans out there right now are screaming at me, but it's much more interesting for Batman's character if he's dead.
Yes. Again, I don't want to hurt the Jason Todd fans. I understand. And I think there have been good stories with Jason since his resurrection. But I think for the universe of Batman, giving Batman a great failure is something that is important. And it was one of the things, short of the death of his parents, that defined his character for all of that time. And when you got rid of it, what you've gotten by having Jason alive and having Bruce have to struggle with that has never had the same weight as the loss of Jason.
Because he's, at one point or another, he's been estranged from every other Robin.
Oh, yeah, at least.
Maybe with Jason, it's a different degree of estrangement, but, it's not the same. Speaking of Star Trek, like the character of Jean-Luc Picard gets a lot of weight and dimension after his assimilation. Like that is a trauma he can carry forward, and you can do different stories with that. Having Jason be dead is something that Batman can reckon with forever. But oh well. Somebody can do a mini series where Jason is still dead. I'd read that.
I'd be interested to see where you'd go with it.
Dan Waters, for the next Dark Patterns, do just the death of Jason Todd.
Do a story set in the wake of the death of Jason Todd. I would read the hell out of that. A last couple of notes. Jeff Loeb trying to be cute and being like, oh yeah, Martha made you your Supergirl costume. Martha made her that tight belly shirt, short skirt costume. Was there not enough fabric?
Nope. All right, now, I know at some point I understood how this worked. Soups gets sent as a baby, arrives in Kansas, grows up in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Kara gets sent as a teen.
Yes, she was a teenager when she was sent.
And gets trapped in a wormhole.
Different versions give it different scientific technobabble. Wormholes, suspended animation, the engines on the ship kind of conked out, and she was just carried by inertia after a certain period. There's all kinds of ways, but yeah, basically her ship was held up for 30-ish years. So she arrives expecting to be Kal-El's babysitter, and her cousin is now 20 years older than she is.
Comics, man, they're fun.
Yep. Last note, did kind of get me that the story winds up being dedicated to Christopher Reeve because
Oh.
it came out just as he had passed.
Yeah. Sad.
This is a story where, okay, great. You want to bring Supergirl back into the DC universe? Great. Superman Batman is your top seller at that point. Okay, you're going to do it in there. Great.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This was a big deal book. I mean, Michael Turner was a huge, huge artist, and he hadn't done big two work in ages, other than
Fascinating.
covers. So
Fascinating.
getting him to do this, the first arc of this, the Loeb McGinnis arc, was a big deal. This is the first World's Finest-esque ongoing since the early 80s, and early to mid 80s, and now we're 20 years ish later. So this was launched as a big deal, as a marquee book. And this was a huge story. And when you think about it, you got Ed McGuinness, Michael Turner, Carlos Pacheco, and then McGuinness comes back for the last arc. These are top tier talent artists with Loeb, who, while not coming right off the heels of his best work, is still, he's coming off the heels of Hush, which was the bestest seller of bestsellers. So you are dealing with major, major characters. DC has never really been able to recapture that with The World's Finest. Wade's book right now is a solid seller. It sells well, but it's not the number one book. I don't think it's trying to be. But this was intended to be the marquee book.
Fascinating.
And then Loeb left after 26 issues, and it became, let's find somebody to write an arc. And it became, I don't think there was a regular creative team on the book for more than 6 to 8 months until towards the end of the run. This was a way more complicated version of this story than it needed to be.
Not the first time we're going to say that tonight. On that note, it's time to put Superman Batman 8 to 13, the Supergirl from Krypton, on the big board.
We are at 729 stories on the big board.
God damn.
Number 1 is Post-Crisis Origin of Batman, Batman Year 1.
Coming in at a sexy 69, it's Batman Annual number 4 from Volume 3, Every Day.
At 175 is Suit of Evil Souls, the Batman Ragman team-up. At 350 is Enter the Outsiders, the first arc of Batman and the Outsiders.
Coming in real high, not nearly as close to the bottom as it once was. At 420, it's Batman, Shadow of the Bat, 19 to 20, the Tally Man from Night Quest, The Crusade.
At 525 is Museum of Mixed Up Men, the first meeting of Batman and the Elongated Man. And all the way to the bottom, it's Three Jokers.
Dog turd of a story. You know what? That's really offensive to dog turds. I am sorry, dog turds.
So
It's going to be a tough night for the board.
the highest story of the night is in Trifle Town.
Yeah.
And it's not this one.
Yeah. The greatest sin here by far is that it's too long. It's too broody. It's too cheesecakey.
Just as an absolute starter point, the first arc of this, Public Enemies, with the downfall of President Lex, is 484. This is not better than that.
No. Apocalypse was kind of interesting. Kind of.
Yes, there are some neat ideas. It's not a fridging of Harbinger, but we didn't even bring that up. But Harbinger, a minor DC character out of the original Crisis, is killed off here. But the needless killing of that character is not great either.
No. Batman Year 2 at 547.
It's not better than Year 2.
Okay.
No.
Face to Face at 600.
I like Face to Face more, but I liked Face to Face more in general than you did. Well, let's look at this. 604, Lord of the Ring. That's another Loeb Rucka the team up where Superman and Batman steal the kryptonite ring from Lex Luthor, which also has a needlessly complicated scheme there.
Ah, yes, but that is only 2 issues.
And the art there is not as good as it is here. Not that this, but this is, I don't particularly like Turner's style, and I don't think it necessarily suits the book, but he is a better artist than the artist on that Detective Comics issue, which is real not good.
What about Superman, Batman, Enemies Among Us at 608?
I think it's better than that. That's the thing where there's all the aliens on Earth are getting mind whammied, and it's not, I don't think it's, is that five, is that 6 issues or is that five? I think that's five. No, that's 6 issues too. And that is more ponderous, and it's drawn by Ethan Van Sciver. So
Boo.
yeah, I think we got to put it above that.
How about right above Living Beast Bomb at 606, the new 606?
Sure, I can go for that. Our second story of the night is Terror in the Third Dimension. This is Batgirl Volume 3, Number 14. The writer is Brian Q. Miller, with pencils by Lee Garbett and Perry Perez, inks by Jonathan Glapian, Rodney Ramos, and Perry Perez, colors by Guy Major, letters by Travis Lanham, and edited by Sean Ryan and Michael Siglane. The cover date is November of 2010. It was supposed to be a fun night out on the town for Stephanie Brown and Kara Zor-El. Just two young women having a fun night as friends. But when a science experiment gone awry creates 24 hard-light Draculas, Supergirl and Batgirl have to team up to stop their rampage. So I'm just going to say it right. This is story of the night.
By default.
Yeah, this is a fun little story, but it is a pretty thin little story.
Yeah.
It is one of the definitions of a trifle.
It doesn't go beyond really what's on the 10, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Right. Sometimes you want to do a one-off story where Supergirl and Batgirl team up to fight hologram Draculas. And there you go.
And that's all you need. It's not Crisis. I don't think they're murdering people, right?
No, these things are not, they're not sentient. It's like killing holodeck characters. And not like holodeck Moriarty, but just holodeck characters. And I love that Stephanie, when talking to the scientist, makes some reference to, okay, so we're talking Moriarty, evil Lincoln here? Yes, Stephanie is into Trek. I love it.
What year was this?
2010.
It wouldn't have been at the time when they were printing next gen books.
Comics or novels? Because those next gen
Well,
novels.
I meant like in house at DC.
Oh no. By 2010, I think the rights would have been either we were in between rights holders or it was already at IDW. Because it's been at IDW for a while now. I had a good time with this story. There's a lot of like fun little art pieces. Like the 2-page spread where they take out a whole bunch of Draculas is amusing. There's some great little sight gags there. Like the photo booth strips of the one Dracula and then Kara just coming in and staking him. That was fun.
I believe they are called Counts Dracula.
Yes, they would be Counts Dracula, wouldn't they? Speaking of proper plural, I love the gag at the end where BFF, it's not BFFs, it's already plural.
There you go.
Again, we are grammar pedants, and we love it when we see someone else who is. I understand Miller was trying to add a little depth to the story by this emo Dracula, because again, the movie that he's from is this sort of like, oh, woe is Dracula, I am always alone. And both Kara and Cass are feeling sort of alone at this point. So he's trying to do a little more with this, but there isn't enough space for it to be more than kind of a surface level look at that. And there are again cute little gags in the some of the captions. Requisite Super Collider Lab. Requisite Gotham Dance Club. It's funny after we commented on how cheesecakey the Turner story was. This one hangs lampshades on how cheesecakey this stuff can be, with Kara just tearing off her street clothes and being in her Supergirl costume, and then her looking at Steph's like, "What? I can't tear my shirt off unless you want to see my bra. Does it have a bat on it?"
It does not.
We've read the first, what is it, 8-ish issues of this book, and man, it's just a fun book. Miller gives Steph a really clear voice. And unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of Steph and Kara. There was this issue, there's an issue of a World's Finest miniseries that focused on them. Maybe one or two other stories over in Supergirl. But I would have liked more of this dynamic because they play off each other really well. Miller isn't trying to make this any more than a fun story with a little bit of character. The fact that they have to use these control rods to basically stake the Draculas, again, it's called out that it's like, oh, hey, we're doing we're staking vampires.
We're doing a shtick.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this story wasn't interesting, but this would have been fun if it was Kara and Cass. Like Cass dealing with the absurdity of the Draculas.
Cass would have been a better straight man
Yes.
to this situation. Steph rolls with it a little more. She's like, okay, this is weird. I'm good with it. In the same way we did a ways back the Superman Batman issue where Damian meets Kara for the first time, and Damian being very haughty, and Damian from the pre-New 52 asshole Damian. There's more of a contrast there. Steph and Kara, it's fun that they're friends, but there's no conflict in that. They're just friends, which is great, which is fun. But then I feel like that maybe you needed a more strong antagonist to make the story feel like it has stakes versus, no pun intended, I said it and I immediately was like, oh, crap.
Can't take it back, Matthew.
Nope. Not going to edit that out. You're all going to have to hear the bad unintentional wordplay. But the Draculas, okay, they are biting people, but they're not like they're biting them apparently very hard. Like they seem to bite you on the neck and then run away.
They're not turning you.
Right. It's all comedy. It feels more like an episode of Erie, Indiana than the X-Files. Which, again, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything bad in this story. It's fun. But I would have liked a little more out of the Miller Batgirl run because those first couple arcs we read are so strong. And they're so character focused. And while, again, there's some character bits here, most of it is just set aside to be a bunch of fun gags.
And I think you can get away with that more in a Batgirl book, especially a Stephanie Brown Batgirl book, than you can with a Batman book.
Oh, yeah. Even the most fun Batman story still has to be intensely charactery. Date Night. I mean, that second issue of Date Night is something like this. It's, just characters out on the town, but there's still so much more character to it. Here, it's just fun. A Batgirl or a Robin book can do the same thing depending on your Robin. I don't know how much fun. You don't know. Super Sons, Damian and John. Yes, you can get away with this kind of story with Damian and John. Or Tim and Connor. But I don't think you can have a light, fun, just Damian story. It doesn't really.
No,
swing.
he's a trained killer.
Yeah, you need the lightness of John Kent to balance out the darkness that is Damian Wayne. I wish there was more to say about this story because it is just presented as a one-off, as a monster of the week type episode. And there are also a couple of little bits about Steph and her mom at the beginning and the end, and
What
Kara's.
a miserable Scrabble board.
Oh yeah, that was a just the worst. Like it would have been nice to see what was on the board. Maybe she could have lined something up with a good triple letter score somewhere. If she could have used, she had either a Q or a Z.
She had a Z, and I've just been like, all right, play za somewhere and be done with it.
Exactly.
Turn in a couple of those E's.
Hmm. Little bits of character, with her talking about her mom, and This was. I want to see. This is one of these things that just occurred to me about when this story was released, because I want to know when this was in relation to the new Krypton story. Because there was a period where this was November of 2010. Oh, yeah, we're well after New Krypton. Interesting. I would have just been curious because that was the story where various members, a bunch of Kryptonians were released from the Phantom Zone, plus Kandor was re-expanded, and it turned out that Kara's parents were alive and her mom was kind of a hard ass. She would have already had to deal with losing her mom again at that point. But again, you weren't going to get into all of that in this one intentionally very light little issue.
And we could stand to have more of these, just one-off stories. Maybe not always comedic, right? But we seem to be in the main Bat books in the middle of 5, 6, 7 part stories. Like, give me a one and done, And Fraction, when he came on to Batman, he said, "Oh, these are all going to be self-contained stories," and he is technically true, but he is using all of his self-contained stories to tell a much, much larger story.
Yes, this is not the. I'm trying to think of a book that. It's not the Bat Scoob model where every issue of Batman and Scooby Doo was one story. We've made it very clear we would rather have a bunch of one offs than needlessly stretching out every story into 6 parts.
Oh boy. My God.
Because you know what? We all know everything is going to get collected now. The trades are going to be about 6 issues. Maybe you want to do 3 2-part stories, 2 3-part stories. A story needs to matter to be 6 parts.
Yes, yes. And not every story can be epic. They really can't.
No.
Because if you try to make every story epic, every story ends up being, oh no, Gotham is under siege. Oh no, the Bat family is in crisis. Oh no, Batman is fighting a fucking robot. That just gets tiresome.
Yeah. There's a reason why some of my favorite Batman runs are less epic. Go back and look at Greg Rucka's run. Look at what Alan Grant did on Shadow of the Bat. There are also epic runs that I love. Rom V's opus that was Gotham Nocturne is phenomenal because it felt like it deserved to be this massive opera. But sometimes just want to fight a vampire for an issue or a bunch of pseudo vampires.
And on that note, it's Todd, but Batgirl number 14, Terror in the Third Dimension on the big board. Going on down to Trifle Town.
Yeah, so we are probably then somewhere in the Trifle Town starts at this point at about 450. A little lower than that. Joker's utility belt, 457. That's a trifle. Then Joker's boner at 462. First appearance of Joe Potato at 470. They're not all trifles in there, but that is where a lot of the trifles, the really good trifles, are in that 450 to 500 range, along with stories that have good in them, but also some meh elements as well. I would put this above Officer Down. I'd put this above 500.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a ceiling. How do we feel? Okay, I said it. 470, first appearance of Joe Potato. I mean, there's a little more to that, but also it's a story that is predicated on the idea that taking ecstasy can turn you into a homicidal maniac who's going to go and murder everyone who has ever wronged them.
Look, sometimes we don't understand the new drug that the kids are into, and we have to be afraid of it.
Above or below that?
This is gonna shock you, right? I know it's not going above 462.
No, no, I don't think it beats Joker's boner.
No.
So below 462, but I would put it above 474. Death Mask, that manga with the hallucinogenic masks that had some fun stuff in it, but was also probably a little too long. Four double-sized issues.
You know what? I think this goes either above, right above or right below. It happened in Rome at 471. Which book do you think is more fun?
I think we go below It Happened in Rome. I liked it.
It's a tough call.
It is. I think we give it to the weight of historical significance. Batman's first time travel story. Yeah, we'll give It Happened in Rome that.
If you just think really hard about time traveling, you can make it happen.
Man, if that were possible. Our final story of the night is Elseworlds' finest, Supergirl and Batgirl. This is written by Barbara Kiesel with a plot by Kiesel, Matt Haley, and Tom Simmons. Pencils are by Haley and inks are by Simmons. Colors by Moose Bauman. Letters by Bill Oakley and edited by Maureen McTeague and Joey Cavalieri. The cover date is September of 1998. Gotham is a city-state on its own, controlled by a Batgirl with advanced tech. After years apart from the rest of the world, Batgirl has decided to let outsiders in and allow Lex Luthor to set up a new factory in Gotham. Luthor is then kidnapped by the Joker, and Supergirl, Luthor's defender, raids Gotham to save him. And along the way to find him, this world's finest will learn there is more to Lex than they imagined.
Matt, let me ask you this. If you had an interesting idea for an Elseworld, would you explain it 45 pages in?
That is exactly how I felt about this. Because this is one I had never read before.
Ooh, how nice.
This is that period in the 90s when these, God help us, these Elseworlds like were $5.99 prestige formats back when comics were, $2.50, $2. That was an expensive book.
That's so much more chocolate milk for lunch.
That's buying this and not buying two or three other comics. So there are a bunch of these Elseworlds from this period that I had not read before, which is why I picked this because I was like, oh, cool, it's an Elseworlds with Batgirl and Supergirl. I've never read it before. This could be fun. I was wrong.
I'm kind of surprised this one's available digitally.
Yeah, or at least on its own. Like it's also in one of the trades, and I figured we'd have to, find it in one of the trades. It was like, oh wait, no, this thing exists on its own. Weird. There are plenty of Elseworlds we've read where they spend way too much time explaining the world. But then this has the opposite problem where you're dropped in, I was about to say in media res, but in media res feels like you're dropped into the middle of a story. This feels
Or at
like
least some kind of action.
you're dropped into the third act of this Elseworld. So much has gone on, and you get no frame of reference for any of it until the end.
That was a weird choice. Like just a weird choice. It's almost like, this is what, 65, 66 pages, something like that.
Yeah, 64 plus a cover and a back page.
It feels like it was paced for 80, 100, and then, the team is like, you got 65, make it work. And they took the beginning and they cut out a whole bunch and they just stuck the beginning, 2/3 of the way through the book.
Yeah.
Like
And
none of that was an interesting surprise. It was more of like a, oh, this was the shit I needed to know to just kind of understand and give a fuck about what's going on.
And that's the big problem. That without knowing why Barbara is the way she is, she's just a fascist. She's just controlling Gotham as a police state with surveillance technology that makes the Patriot Act look like nothing. And there's big time Elseworlds problem in introducing an entire Justice Society who do nothing.
Not a single fucking thing other than to show subservience to Batwoman or to Batgirl.
Yep, a weird Tim Drake cameo working for the Justice Society. And they're the Justice Society, by the way, not the Justice League, despite the back of the book saying they're the Justice League. So the back cover wasn't edited properly. And then there's a moment like Wonder Woman's talking to the president and it's Elvis. And that just felt like, okay, let's just throw in this funny little detail because I want to have President Elvis.
You know, if he had stayed clean, I mean, it's certainly plausible. If Reagan could be president, Elvis could certainly have been president.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it just, why? I just didn't feel like there was any need for that.
No, no, of course not.
And you get to the very end and you get, I'm sorry, a Lex Luthor heel turn is never a surprising or
No.
satisfying ending.
No.
Because he's fucking Lex Luthor. Of course he's the bad guy.
And the thing that bothered me so much, and this kills every story where this happens, where characters, whether they're from Krypton or not, where characters simply don't behave as rational, reasonable, relatable people. So we have this whole lead up to this story, to this moment, how Kara is just enamored with Lex Luthor. Like there's at least some kind of romance is implied. There's supposed to be a real connection, at least from Kara's side. You know, Lex is a fucking psychopath, you know, whatever. She finds out that Lex killed, you know, the infant Kal-El. He found him, killed him, keeps him in a kryptonite jar. And then instead of being in shock, instead of mourning, instead of changing her feelings or her feelings changing to suit her new reality, Kara immediately goes to, I'm going to kill him. It was not a rational response. And maybe, again, maybe that's because the script got shortened. There needed to be some type of real emotional growth and reckoning with, I just had a hero of mine do the most unimaginable, awful thing conceivable. That just read so fake and phony to me. If I didn't have to read that, I think at that point I would have put the book down. I'm like, this is fucking trash. I'm not going to finish this.
You needed to get her to that point
Yeah.
to keep the story, to get to the final act of the story.
And why of course does she want to kill Lex? Because that puts you up against Batman or Batgirl in this case.
And okay, so we get what is, I thought, a really interesting origin for this Batgirl.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I loved the idea that, so the night the Waynes were at the movies, the Gordons were there too. And when the movie got out and Joe Chill went to mug and kill the Waynes, Jim got in his way and he and Barbara Sr. were shot and killed instead of the Waynes. And so the Waynes took in Babs. She becomes Batgirl. Bruce, who is something of the wastrel that we expect him and are used to his faux persona being, he's actually kind of like that, but he's also dedicated to helping her. That's neat. But as you said, getting it at the end doesn't help us understand Barbara's actions throughout the previous parts of the story. And then the big reveal that Joe Chill was hired by Lex to kill the Waynes.
It's dumb.
beyond it being dumb, there's no explanation as to why. Why did he want to kill the Waynes?
Because he's Lex Luthor and he's bad. That's
Well, yeah,
why.
that's exactly kind of what we're given. It's like, oh, because he's Lex Luthor.
Now, I thought it was interesting that, again, never explored. Barbara has a gun in the alley. I mean, she obviously didn't shoot Chill. Did she contemplate shooting Chill? What happened there? So I thought that was something that could have been explored.
Right. 'Cause she picks up Jim's fallen gun, and I would have assumed that she held him at gunpoint until the cops came. But no, you find out later that they caught Joe Chill years and years later. Like, so she just held up the gun to him, and he ran away, and she didn't shoot him right after he shot her parents. Because isn't that what the Dawnbreaker?
Yes.
Bruce picks up Joe Chill's gun and shoots Joe Chill. We've seen that. I mean, that was, way after this. But still, Barbara is holding him at gunpoint, and then it's just like, oh, yeah, and then he got away.
And how does this Barbara process what the Waynes either did or didn't do that night? Right? That's a big missing chunk of what would motivate this Batgirl.
And Bruce as a character is really thin here.
I had a real fucking deviant thought sitting here to record the show. This would not have fit with the tone of the rest of the book, but this Bruce definitely deserved like a French maid outfit.
Ah! And where's Alfred? Does Alfred just not exist on this world?
No, he's Bruce.
Yeah. In any story, and this is something of the President Lex issue, where this millionaire did something terrible and shitty, and he got caught, and it's gonna ruin his life. He might be able to escape the criminal justice system, but he'll never be the same again. I'm sorry, that is the greatest fiction in this comic.
No, yeah, we're in a post-shame society.
Mm-hmm. And Barbara's xenophobia of powered people, even the origin doesn't really explain where that came from.
No, she should want to. I mean, this doesn't track with Bruce, but she should want to eliminate, street crime. The brother eye type stuff makes perfect sense. But, she should be not the Punisher ass Batman that we hate, but if she's going to have a police state, it should be a curfew. It should be smile, happy times, be nice to your kids. That kind of dystopian sort of control, not, I distrust supers.
And you could have explained it. All you needed was one panel of some superhuman who tried to overturn the Oracle system. And she's like, okay, well, can't trust them now because they tried to bring down my burgeoning police state. So got to kick him out of the city.
I mean, the most interesting parts of this book are not there.
And we haven't even brought up venomed up, jacked Joker, who's just a creepy stalker. And not in the scary, fascinating death of the family way. He looks like a gym bro who's a little too, or a lot too, into some woman. I don't know what it is, but making him big and beefy makes the Joker much less scary.
Oh, yes. He is. Yeah, we just read Death of the Family, where it's the most, Jason type of Joker. This is the silliest Joker.
Yeah,
I don't even know if he has a body count here.
One guy.
One guy.
He
That's
kills
pathetic.
Lex's chauffeur. That's it.
And he has to face charges for that.
And we get the thing with Professor Hamilton, who's a Superman supporting character, giving Joker venom, which is, I guess, derived from Superman cells in this world, or from something Kryptonian.
The Joker's attraction to Batgirl is basically the same as his attraction to Batman, but it just kind of paints every story that plays with it, every other Batman story that plays with it as cowardice for not pushing it as far as they do here.
But even here, I don't know how to put this in a way that doesn't come off sounding callous, because I don't intend it to be. The way Joker stalks Batman in the mainstream DC universe is deeply psychologically weird. It's elaborate and it's Machiavellian. Here, he's just a creepy stalker guy. You know what it is? This doesn't need to be the Joker. It's the Joker because it's a Batman story, and so thus it's the Joker. But there's nothing about what he does here that is particularly Jokery.
No, aside from the preoccupation with Batman. But
Right.
that's almost anybody in the Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, you could have made this Two-Face. You could have made this Riddler. And it wouldn't have affected the overall story other than you're doing an Elseworld, so it's of course going to be the fucking Joker.
If we wanted to do interesting gender things, we would have done Poison Ivy.
Or Harley.
Yeah?
But yeah, this Joker isn't interesting.
And by God, that's the worst thing you can do with Joker.
Oh, yeah. Making him Muscle Joker doesn't make him an interesting character. And making him obsessed with, oh, she's looking at me. It's like, that's not that different from regular original recipe Joker.
If you made him muscly and just absolutely stupid, like just a brain dead, stupid, ripped, muscled Joker, that would have been different.
Yeah. It needed to be more than what we're given here. And the end being just such an exposition dump. And the idea of a Supergirl who arrives on Earth and there being no Superman. There should have been more of that. I believe, and I'm a little bit behind on my comics, but there's an Elseworlds out right now that just started last week as we are recording, called Supergirl Survive.
Ooh, interesting.
And I believe that she actually, Kara Zor-El lives a life of small problems. School dances, family squabbles, and the impossible task of holding her floppy baby cousin Cal. But Krypton has big ones. As General Zod tightens his grip and the planet begins to burn, Kara and Cal are launched into the stars together, trapped in a prototype rocket and fighting to survive a universe that doesn't care if they live or die. So it's actually her being the guardian of baby Kal-El, which I think is a much cooler idea than she arrives on Earth and there's no Superman. But at least if she arrives on Earth and there's no Kal-El, could we have spent some time investigating that? Could we have more drawn parallels with, okay, she doesn't have anyone from her culture, so that's why she imprints on Lex so hard.
This book just refused to investigate anything seriously, which is infuriating.
Yeah, it was just way too meh all around.
That's not for not having at least a handful of interesting ideas.
And that in itself might be the greatest sin.
Yep.
One of the things that we liked about that last story we talked about was it's just a simple idea executed well. This is a bunch of complicated ideas that are all jumbled together and don't get any exploration other than, hey, look at what I can say. And that's not great. I think we can wrap this up.
I think we can as well. It's time to put Elseworlds' finest Supergirl and Batgirl on the big board.
I think we are probably in the 600s.
It's not problematic.
Yes. So it is above. I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out. It's above 682. 682 is when we start getting into truly problematic and or truly and unutterably dumb. but I don't know how much higher we're getting. Okay, Golden Dawn at 666.
None of the dialogue is as bad as in Golden Dawn, and at least we don't have Batman carrying the idiot ball in this book. Kara has to carry the idiot ball.
Yeah, I can agree with that. All right, another Elseworlds, The Nail at 657. You were lower on that than I was, but I think a lot of that has to do with me having a lot more grounding in all those characters. That was over expositioned to death, that book was.
It probably does more with its core idea, though.
The Nail? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a certain charm with America versus the Justice Society.
Yeah.
4 issues that read like 12,
Right.
but it's got its heart in the right place.
It does. I think it's either above or below 660, City of Crime. City of Crime is overlong. Its most interesting ideas don't get fleshed out at the expense of we've got weird mud golems as the principal idea of it. But there are really interesting parts of that book.
Let's go below.
Okay, so the new 661?
New 661.
And that does it for tonight. Next week, we're circling back to continuing runs with the next arcs of No Man's Land and Night Quest the Crusade, and catching up on some of the side No Man's Land comics we missed. Remember, you can support the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/batchat with Matt and Will, where you can get shoutouts, bonus content, pick a story, and even come on the show. We'd like to thank those Patreon backers: Dan Grote, Josh Wheel, Mrs. Abigail Hartbaum, Asma Fangirl, Tony Thornley,
Go Aggies.
Sam Hopper,
Go to bed, Sam. It is so late.
John Wickham,
John, you beautiful Bubba, you.
Tim Rooney, Giorgio Sregioli, David Wheel,
World's greatest gray belt.
Alexander Wheel, Matt McThorne,
McThorny.
Dan Offer,
Danny boy, the pipes are calling.
Nate Randell, Daniel Mosley, Ross Holmes,
Mr. Random Ace.
Will Crisp,
Me compadre.
Carlos Cordova, Jordan Jennings, Charlie Etheridge Nunn, Sean Shambly, The Final Wraith,
The scariest wraith.
Kyle Still,
Still the one.
Carolyn Smith,
Sweet Caroline. Ba ba ba.
and El the Kaleidoscope Man
I see such wonderful things.
for their support. This show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music/Audible, YouTube Music, Podbean, and on comicsxf.com. New episodes drop every Thursday. You can find me on Blue Sky, where I talk about comics and other random things, and Letterboxd, where I review all the movies I watch, both at MattLaz1013.
You can find me at the bad place and the good place at Will Nevin, where I don't know. Did I even tweet anything? I think the last thing I tweeted was a GoFundMe for a bro who has stage 4 cancer, because that's how we handle healthcare in this country. It's a great system we have here. I'm gonna get me a soda pop and go to bed. Good night, Huntsville.
And be sure to visit ComicsXF at comicsxf.com or ComicsXF on Blue Sky for our weekly Friday Batchat roundup of new Bat books. For my other show, the ComicsXF Interview Podcast, where my longtime best friend Dan Grote and I interview comics creators, retailers, publishers, journalists, and other related tradespeople, as well as all the other stuff Will and I are writing. And stay safe out there, folks. Gotham is not a place to be after dark.